please introduce yourself and your involvement in the industrial Internet of Things.
So hi, I'm John Tuccillo, and I'm from Schneider Electric. At Schneider Electric, I'm responsible for all of our engagements with standards bodies, industry organizations, government and regulatory community. We joined the IIC just about a year ago, and I currently serve as a member of the steering committee.
Now, go back in time a little bit for me and think back, when was it that you had your aha moment when you really, went to yourself, you thought, this Internet of Things is probably going to be pretty big?
One of the things that I think we all do is engage in the end-use customers a lot. So we engage in a lot of conversations regarding what-if scenarios. What if this, that, or the other thing could come to fruition? So IoT certainly was one of those topics a while ago. So you look at the promise of IoT, and you start to think about it and engage in these conversations about how is it going to increase productivity? How can it increase connectivity, flexibility? How is it responsiveness? All of these things that ultimately can improve production while also reducing risk, reducing costs, optimizing your own value chains. And as those conversations really started to evolve beyond connected products, where a lot of people have been for a long time, to interoperable systems, architectures, complementing architectures, it suddenly became much bigger. And then the promise of what IIoT could really do started to change. And that was more or less the moment that everyone sat back and said, I get it.
Now, it sounds like you've been working with customers a little while on this. Have you observed any best practices that you can share with our viewers?
I think really those that are kind of the early adapters, these are the people who are really engaging quickly and starting to think about, okay, how do I move my existing system? How do I extend my system to some IoT smart sensing technologies? How is it that I can add some intelligence to this ecosystem? And then those are the ones that are also starting to experiment with the converged architectures of IT and OT. And those are the folks that are starting to really see some early returns on optimizing. And to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why we're as committed as we are to this organization. Because it's here where then we can bring forward some of these ideas, some of these early returns, engage the end-use customer community, engage the regulatory community, standards communities, bring everybody together, and really start to talk about the what-ifs. How can we ensure that there's some sensible use cases and some value to this level of interoperability, and then how should we come together to structure this in a way that can help to accelerate it? You have here in IIC, you have the test beds, you have the use cases, but as importantly, if not more, you start to talk about the value. It's beyond the technology. You start to talk about the value in which this systems of systems interoperability can really bring to society. Sure, we're focused on the industrial sector, but the applicability is very broad.
So you've gone through a lot of reasons of why you joined the IIC. Are there any other reasons why you joined?
We really do honestly believe very strongly that where the success or the sweet spot is for this is really on the industry coming together to ensure that there is consistency with the operating parameters, consistency in the values, and only then will really industry globally be able to optimize on the opportunity, or the promise, as I call it, of IoT.
Now, how is Schneider participating in the IIC? What is your role here?
So my role in particular, as I mentioned, is I'm on the steering committee. So really my role within IIC is one of governance, of strategy, of growth. How do we ensure consistency? How do we ensure that everybody's voices are heard? And those are the kinds of things that we address on the steering committee. Beyond that, though, I've got colleagues from Schneider that are involved in the different test beds, the technology committee, the marketing committees. Many of my colleagues are connected throughout. But we also actively recruit. So as the end user community are the true beneficiaries of all of this, we actively engage with our own customer base, but also in other industry flora and say, how is it that we can come together in this kind of a construct of open communications to be able to really accelerate the space on a global scale? I've got folks not only here in North America, I've got folks in Europe, Asia, far and wide that are actively participating.
Now you're participating. What are you hoping, what's Schneider hoping to get out of the IIC?
To be honest, it's that commonality so that we can ensure that, as I mentioned earlier, the interoperability of the systems of systems or the converged architectures of IT and OT, and it's when all of this comes together that you're going to get that value.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.